that amazing note, I want to introduce the fantastic, amazing, wonderful, always the best, Arona. One of the things that we have been talking about, and in order to really connect with your students also on the learning level and not just a personal level, is to find out what they know and what they don't know and what they can do, okay? Where are their strengths is very, very important, because those are the ones that are going to help us connect better with our students. And Arona is going to talk about how we can figure out what they can do.
Before I begin to talk about this, I just want to say that I don't think there's anybody in the world that's giving the kind of SEL support that Judy and her team have been giving to teachers this whole time. It's really unbelievable. I can tell you that there's nobody in the country doing something like this, and I feel that they're always like 5, 10, 15, 25 exponential times ahead, always thinking about how to make this really challenging time more palatable. We really are in the middle of a revolutionary shift, and it's going to take us a while to figure out what we're really doing. So, meanwhile, we have this evaluation that Siona and I worked on many, many years ago through what was called then the Merkaz Lekishurei Hora'ah in Ot. And the idea was to create an evaluative tool for 7th graders and for 10th graders, incoming classes, to try to figure out where they were, who they were, what their skills were, in order to help teachers build an effective teaching program. About 2 years ago, budget was given to Rama to develop a tool sort of like the Able Kit that some of you know about for elementary school, for the 7th grade, for the incoming class of 7th grade. And it was supposed to be ready this year. And to a certain extent it is ready, except it isn't ready because it hasn't been piloted and thousands of kids haven't been tested on it to see if it's really okay. So we're offering this test again to teachers who would like to use it. And it's a test that we've been using for the past couple of years in the Building Blocks program for 7th graders. And we've upgraded it, and we've changed it a little bit, and we've moved it a little bit, and we've done things to it to make it a little bit more appropriate. And it's not new. The test itself is not new. There's things in it that are probably very, very different from what you normally give in a 7th grade evaluation test. That's number one. Number two, the concept is that we really wanted, Judy talked about her 3 C's, right? And one of them is to actually have a good connection with our learners. And in order to have a good connection with our students, aside from knowing what their favorite color is and what kind of shoes they like, and all sorts of things like that, it's very, very important. Are you with me? Can people?
Oh, yeah, we're with you.
Totally with you.
We're here, but your video is frozen, so.
So that's the problem. Okay, so and now?
Good. Now we see.
Yeah, you're fine.
Now you're moving.
So one of the things that's very, very important is to actually be able to teach our learners and work with them from where they are, and not walk around all year saying, I can't believe there's so many kids that blah, 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 blah. So the purpose of this test is theoretically not to divide children up into hakbatzot, but you'll see that if it's necessary, it's possible. So let's take the next slide. This is just telling you who I am, and if you need any question, contact, go ahead. We can go on to the next slide. And we all have these expectations of our classrooms. Now we have to have expectations of so many other things. It's not only what we're hoping to have happen within our walls this year. Judy said we have to think out of the box. Then she showed us a movie of children in India who are sitting in a circle. And basically, we have to be able to, and you've been doing this, try to use whatever's possible to maintain a semblance of educating. And that can work. I think our number one expectation is that the kids come into class. Now our number one expectation is of ourselves is how are we going to actually do that? How are we going to make that happen? We're all, everybody's tired of this whole situation. And, you know, the jokes about COVID ran around for a while and then they sort of stopped. And we now have a new year and we're supposed to begin with fresh ideas, and it's very, very challenging. Okay, next one. So let's talk about the WH questions, and then I'd like to share the elements of the test with you very, very quickly, and then show you parts of the test. And we can call it an evaluative tool. I don't even think we should call it a test. We don't really have a good name for these kinds of things. And any questions, any comments to the team? Okay. So first of all, who are we talking about? We're talking about the incoming 7th graders, which you know. We've also used the same evaluative tool for 8th grade students when we want to know more about their skills. What is it? It's an evaluation of skills and knowledge. The purpose is not to identify what they don't know. That doesn't help us. There's so many things we don't know, but rather to identify starting points. Where are they, each and every student, and how can we actually think about teaching them? When do we want to administer? ASAP, whenever you can, as soon as you can. And Judy keeps talking about the 17 days. So sometime within these 17 days. Where? Ta-da! Hopefully in a school setting. It's easier to give or administer a mass evaluative tool like this when we are in school. However, there are many other possibilities, and I'm happy to help any of you think about that along with Judy and her team. Okay, next one. So why? Why do we need it? So it's a way to learn about our students. Okay, 1, it's a way to learn about our students. 2, it helps to understand what they know and where their starting point is, which I said. The tool itself.
Will there be time for questions later?
No, not now. Please save your questions for later, and we're going to be sharing a link where you can also write questions in. So please continue.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It breaks down the skills of reading, writing, and listening. Okay, and the skills of comprehension and production. What it doesn't include is an oral component. Okay, there's no oral component here, which is an issue, but we can find ways to get that information. It identifies pockets of strength, and I actually had an S here, just pockets of strengths. That's an impossible word to say. And it also identifies corners of challenge, okay? And that's where we're working on, the pockets of strengths and the corners of challenge. And we're talking about all learners. We'll be able to identify here our best students. That's not even usually so difficult. We have the opportunity for them to really show us a lot of their finesse, and all the way through as we go through the levels of the kids that we're teaching and we're working with. Okay, the planning. The results help to define the planning and the program building for this coming year. What do we want to focus on? What are priorities of teaching? What are our goals? What do we need to work on? Now, it's not, 7th grade is 7th grade. There's always the regular things. But we have to remember that last year was what last year was. And so there might be additional challenges, additional gaps, and we might also have surprising pockets of knowledge. It's not designed to break up into leveled groups, but if the shoe fits, you can wear it. All right. So if you see how it works and you want to do something with some kinds of leveled groups in 7th grade, for some schools, that's the way to go. For other schools, it might not necessarily be. Then the data can talk for itself. Okay, next one. Okay, so let me share a little bit what the elements are. I was telling Judy yesterday, whenever I go to these conferences, they say, oh, we have this, da, 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 and then they don't show me what they're talking about. It's even worse than a trailer of a movie that we're not going to be able to see on Netflix for 5 years, and it's never going to come here. Basically, I want to tell you what's in it and then show you some of the elements. Okay.
Okay, Arona, it's linked here. So if you want to go straight to the exam, you can as well.
Not yet. Soon.
Okay.
In a couple minutes. Thank you. Okay. So there are 12 sections. There are 2 listening sections. There's what we call a discrimination section, a visual discrimination section, which is just to give us an additional tool of knowledge about our kids. There are 2 vocabulary sections. There's 3 elements of reading that include decoding and comprehension on 2 levels. And then there's some language. Okay, there's a language element. Language is my word for like grammar and syntax and language use. All right, next. Adele, next slide. And there are 2 writing components, and they're split in what they evaluate. Okay?
Do you want me to open it, Arona?
No, next slide. Okay. Then we have at the end, okay, now you want to just take this away.
Just mute yourself after log out on the phone.
All right, I'm back in. And then we have a self-evaluation.
Wait, I'm muting yourself. I'm muting you on the phone.
Then we have a self-evaluation,
Spotlighting.
which actually, it's like the telltale marks. In the self-evaluation, that's perhaps the most important element. It's not how the child thought he did on the test, but rather how he sees himself as an English language learner. And I think that gives us a lot of important information, personal information about the kids. All right, I want to warn you in advance. There's a lot of L1 on this evaluative tool, and I'll show you what that means. So let's go to the tool right now together.
It's the link above. Go above. Yeah, there. Look and see for yourselves. Click on the Hebrew one.
You can go into
either, but
not
the Hebrew
to the
one.
teacher's guide, but to the test itself.
That Adele. Yeah, great.
Oh, Robin, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, but just move your mic a little bit away from your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, go ahead. So we can go into the first. We're going to go really quickly.
Oops.
Oh, that's the Arabic one. That's not very helpful, but it doesn't really matter. We can show the Arabic one as well as the Hebrew one. The instructions, the guidance are all in L1. And the listening comprehension, the kids listen in English. We have 2 different listening comprehensions, but they answer, the questions are in L1 in Hebrew. So this is a way to see what they really understood. In many cases, listening comprehension tests are actually reading comprehension tests also. Here, we're trying anyway to take that away and actually help the kids, help us delve into their understanding of the text.
Oh.
Next.
Where next?
That's
Where do
the
you want me to
listening. Okay, here, stop here. This is something that should take a second to do. We want the students, and it's a page that we can give to them and collect in no time. We want to see if there's anybody who is still having difficulty with flipping letters, B and D, directionality, little tiny things like that. It seems like a relatively childish activity, and in general, 98.7% of the kids have no problem. They get it all right. But if there are children or learners that are challenged with this, we'll see it right away. Go ahead. Okay, now we have a very, very simple, super simple vocabulary activity. Super simple. You see, there's words and pictures. Very, very basic words, very, very basic pictures. Go on. And then fill-ins, vocabulary fill-ins, sentences with vocabulary fill-ins. Basically, the first part of the test is super duper duper bread and butter. Really evaluating bread and butter skills on the most basic level, so that we can try to pick up those kids who might be having a hard time here, but also to see that everyone's flowing. Next. Here we have language knowledge. Regular grammar close. Okay, go ahead. But there's some visuals to help here a little bit. Okay. We're going to go back to what we couldn't see in a minute, because that perhaps is the best part, in my opinion, of this test. We have two. It's not opening up. We'll try it on the Arabic version in a minute. We have two reading comprehension texts here. Here's one and the next one. This is on a simple level. And here, the questions are in L1. The questions here are in L1. I want to go back 1 second to the text before. Adele, please. Thank you. One more to the text. That's okay. It's a clue. The kids have to basically figure out what the text is about. And the answer is really, they're like clues inside, but the answer is in one sentence that says the only problem is that our neighbor doesn't like the barking. All right. So if the students don't understand the word barking, we will see that other things are going to be affected. But there's clues there, and we want to see what they can pick up, even if they might not understand that. All right, next one. Moving along. Then we have a longer text, which we'll just run through. There it is. Only snakes live here. Yeah. Go ahead. And the questions, again, are in L1. And here we have what we like to call lower order blah, blah, and higher order. Blah, blah, blah. And the idea is to actually see what our students are doing with text, what they're doing with text, what they're processing. If you notice the amount of production, the amount of what we're asking them to produce here is not in English. We're trying to isolate skills. Then there's two writing sections. One where there's this really gorgeous picture. I mean, you know, this is a picture of the night from the 70s or something. Anyway, it's a picture, and we give work. You can come back down, Adele, come back down a little bit. Let's show that picture with those the lady and the gentleman. Yes, okay. So there's vocabulary words for them to use if they want. What we found, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids who did this. So the ones who felt comfortable writing wrote these really cool sentences, and then we had wonderful sentences like this: there are sitting food eating talk people restaurant. And then there was another sentence, tasty people restaurant, and then there was a tasty restaurant people. And sometimes if they can say there is tasty restaurant people, well, at least they know how to start a sentence. But no, not really. Okay, and we evaluate different skills, which I'll show you in a second, on these kinds of sentences. Okay, next one. And then there's a writing, an open task. Again, the assignment is in L1. The example is in English. Okay, that's it. C'est tout. That's it. That is the entire examination and the entire test. Finito. And then we have what I think is much more important, שאלון דיווח עצמי. and we actually ask them what they think about it and how they relate to English. And this is a way to interview our students. It's a way to interview them. Now, before we go and look at the teacher's guide, which we can do right away.
Arona, excuse me, what are questions 4, 5, and 7? Are they really empty, or is it just not showing like the previous part?
It should be in there. We should be able to see it.
So maybe it's
Adele,
not
can you
loading.
enlarge the picture
And
a
if you
little
can't
bit?
see
It's
it, then
hard to
if you can't see it, we'll find you we'll send you in a different copy to post, to send to everybody. I'm a little concerned. Let's go through the Arabic version. I just wait. Bidu, stop here. Stop. Go back. There you go. Okay, can you open this one? Make it bigger.
Make it a little bit larger. This is my favorite part.
Make it a little bit larger.
All right.
If you can. Okay. Can it be a tiny bit larger? Thank you. All right. This is my favorite part of the test. And the evaluative tool. And basically, it checks reading, decoding, just decoding. Instead of us listening to children read a list of words, or our students read a list of words, which I'm going to talk about in a second, this is a way to see if they have what we call orthographic pattern knowledge. Do they know which words actually rhyme? Are they really reading? So we have the word where, and we want them to know that it rhymes with the word there. T-H-E-I-R. You notice that what we see is not the same as what we can choose from as far as the letter combination. This, is one of the more challenging parts of reading in English, or decoding in English. We don't have those im, ot, a, e, u clues like we have in Hebrew, all right? We have too many possible combinations of possibilities. So, for example, 8, gate, bird, word, chair, there, try, high, no, so, they, day, 2, shoe, and fun 1. If you notice, the level of the words is really, really basic, sight word level. But we want to see if when the word is in isolation and it doesn't look the same, can they find the rhyme? The visual, it's not visually the same, it's auditorily the same. Okay.
Okay,
there
can
you
I
go.
go out of this then? Go back to the slides?
Yes. No, now I would like to go to the teacher's guide, the booklet for evaluate for teachers, the blue one. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so in this booklet is all the information that you really need, except for the information that's never what you need in a booklet, right? There's always going to be stuff that you want to know about and questions that you have and things that come up. And so.
Adele, just make it a little bit bigger. It doesn't matter the circles there. Go down.
No, I'm just wondering if everything else came out okay.
It doesn't matter. We'll work it out, but just make it bigger, please.
Bigger coming.
Okay. So the
too big.
Okay, now we are bigger.
Too bigger.
We have enlarged ourselves. Is
that okay?
Okay. Yeah, perfect. All right. So the booklet basically explains Mima Mumo, and let's look and see what I'd like to show you 3 or 4 elements of the booklet. So let's go through. Keep going, Adele. Thank you. It explains and it makes a connection to the CFR, of course, and the can-do statements, of course, and everything that we're talking about, of course. Okay. So here are the tracks for the listening. All right. And we can come down a little bit. Adele, let's come down. Let's go back to page 4. We can stay here. That's okay. What we've done, that's okay. What we've done here is we've explained the percentages of how much each is actually worth of the total tool. The final grade is not really your most important piece of information. We know that anybody who has a final grade who gets between, let's say, 90 and 100, and anybody who gets between, I don't know, 15 and 0, That's very clear. We know what they're telling us. But if someone gets a grade of 70, we don't know anything. If someone gets a grade of 80, we don't know where they're stuck or what they're actually good at. So it's better, in my opinion, to look at and we'll look at an Excel file that I will show you in a minute. It's better to see how our classes, how our groups did on the subtests, and that gives us a lot of information. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, here we have the answer key. Gives all. I'm now muted. Now I'm unmuted. And stop. Thank you. This is a way of evaluating the different kinds of writing tasks. The writing itself doesn't have zillions of points, but we analyze sub skills within the writing. Okay, so we'd like them to write in the first open writing task with the gentleman and the waiter and the elegant madame. So they get their 5 sentences. It's divided into 2. Each sentence, right, gets points. 1 point for content and vocabulary, and you know how content and vocabulary are mixed, okay? We know that it's really difficult to separate content and vocabulary. We can do it. We probably do it all the time. In these sentences, we put it together. That's 1 point. And then they get half a point for each sentence for language and half a point for mechanics, which is spelling and handwriting. And you might think, why is that equivalent? It's equivalent just so that we get a clue and we pay attention to those students of ours who might have brilliant content and great language, but the spelling is and the handwriting is We want actually to pay attention to those things. And usually when a child has illegible handwriting or not the greatest handwriting or whatever we want to say, it's sort of a piece of knowledge that we clunk in our head. But here we want to give it some value as far as the points are concerned. I know someone's going to say, what if the kids have accommodations? Well, there's no accommodations in 7th grade, right? Officially, there are no accommodations in 7th grade. But we'll talk about that in a minute also.
So I didn't mean to open this up on the screen, but just in case anybody's not aware, this is a page a link that's been shared in the chat with you, and you're all welcome to write your questions as some of you are doing here, and we'll get back to it later. And if one of you others could please keep an eye on the
I am already. Keep going, Adele. I'm on it.
Okay, Arona, you.
Okay, let's keep going. And it gives guidelines about how to evaluate. In other words, one of the things that we're asking teachers to do is to take a picture of the product, of the 4 sentences, the 5 sentences. Take a picture in your head to say, oh, they get a message across. Oh, they really made a mess of things. Oh, there's nothing here. But to get a picture before you go and give that little Picayune evaluation. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And here for the longer written presentation, again, overall impression. And we want to, you see what it says? Writing compound sentences should be encouraged. A complex sentence can have 1 or 2 errors of any kind. So the possibility that I want to take off just because a kid decided to wax poetic and made more mistakes in his magnificent sentence. Let's give him a little bit of credit for that. Okay, let's keep going. And there's clear criteria here about how to evaluate. Okay, go ahead. Here's an example. And what we tried to do was to take examples of kids writing and then evaluate it according to the rubrics that are presented. Look, you're all experienced teachers. You know how to do this, but it's nice to have examples. And we'll be happy to have more, I think. These are the ones that we chose But for example, here's the first one. People sitting and eating food. Remember that picture? People sitting and eating food. That's good. He's sitting on the chair, the food tasty, hot in the room, the people happy. Yay! Content and vocabulary was excelente. The language use was not great, but not the worst in the world. And the handwriting mechanics and length was also okay. All right, that's how it was evaluated. Let's go on and look at a longer one, composition. We can keep going down. We can go on. See, there are all sorts of, wait, stop a second. Let's stop here a minute. Here's another one. I sitting in thy restaurant. Thy holy restaurant. I eating hot food. I sitting on thy chair. I love tasty food. Thy people happy. Okay. So content and vocabulary was for language use, you see, handwriting and mechanics and length. So we see that this is a kid who knows how to use his English. Not so rich, but he gets a message across in a good way. And the language use is, right, we have to work on that. We have to tweak it. We know what we have
really
to
well how to write. Learned really well how to write the. Somebody is please mute yourselves, everybody. Judy, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I've muted this person 3 times, so if they can please just keep themselves muted, that would be really fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we could teach this child the word "the." Might be a good concept, right? You know, we could do that. And also, he doesn't know about that verb there that goes in there. That important thing. You know, the M is our thingy bob. All right, let's keep going.
Oh, he had the R, he crossed it out.
He did. Because he has there are people there, and he thought that's not English. All right, now we have some short paragraphs. Let's do another one. Let's go up a little bit. Here. The question was about what you do in your free time. I don't have free time. I need to do homework. I need to learn for test. I go swim in Ashdod. I sleep. I go to work. I help my mother at home, and I don't have free time for anything else. Not a bad, we got a message. Content and organization 6, vocabulary 4, length 2, language use, pretty good. The student wrote a list, it lacks cohesiveness. Tick, 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 tick. But what he does have is a beginning. I don't have free time, and he ends, I don't have free time. And sometimes we can spend an entire year in 12th grade helping our 3-pointers do something like this. All right, which means that we have a lot of potential for this child to bloom. And we can really work with a kid like this, and there are lots of them, on adding peels to the onion, adding information, adding accessories in the sentences, necklaces, earrings, bracelets. Imagine what adjectives would do here. Imagine what additional time expressions and more details would do. This is a great beginning for a 7th grade writer. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a great beginning for where we want to get to and beyond. Okay, let's look at one more. Let's go down a little bit. Let's do this one. In my free time, I like to be with my friends or watching TV. I also love to play with my pets. I have 1 dog, 2 cats, and a little bird. But sometimes I go to sleep if I have free time and I'm boring. Okay? Now, doesn't it seem like things looked really, really good at the beginning, and then it sort of fizzled a little bit? But what we see here are what we might call even advanced language structures. For example, but, nice a connector, but sometimes I go to sleep if I have free time and I'm boring. Okay? We also see that this is someone whose language level is not necessarily reflected in the spelling. There are these little spelling mistakes here that we might not consider to be massive, but it's really easy I would think, with these kinds of things to help this child get rid of the spelling mistakes. Off, gone. Okay, let's go on one more. Okay, let's stop here. This is impressive. We haven't read it yet, but it's impressive. Why is it impressive? It's impressive because look at all those words. And we see from the writing, even though he marked off a couple things and he put in comments, we see that there's fluency in the way this child wrote. There's fluency in the writing. And not only that, there's a critical writer here. He writes and corrects himself. He puts in additional information. The other thing that we see, even from just looking above, and you all know this, you're all experienced, is that he starts and goes. And he has a lot to say. That's encouraging. That's really encouraging. Okay. In my free time, I usually spend a lot of time. Time. In my free time, I usually spend a lot of time with my girlfriend. Okay? With my girlfriend. Because I can't, it's hard for me to read it on the screen.
Do you want me to read it for you?
Because she switched schools. What happens when a kid writes to us at the beginning of 7th grade? What do we know? Because she switched schools. What do we know about this kid? He's a cut above as far as language is concerned, right? That's it. I mean, he's great. And what we want to do with a child like this is keep.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
We want to keep this kind of a child interested and loving English. We want to use a child like this to do great things. And look how much information, I mean, we know, I always believe that all we really need to do is give us a writing, we're done. Look how much information we get from each of these children, these kids, these young adolescents, these older kids, these amazing future people of the world. Okay, and there are other words like probably playing my guitar. I really enjoy playing guitar. It calms me and it makes me happy. It's very impressive. It's really nice to get these kinds of things from kids who are 12, 13. Okay, go ahead. That's it. Okay, general comment. I want to show you this. Let's go back to the general comments. Okay, many of the written products reflect spelling errors, lack of punctuation, and grammatical errors, right? We expect that in 7th grade. We don't expect perfect learners. Of course, you're all laughing at me because you say, ha, 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 that's not who we're worried about, ta-da. Okay, so we're going to talk about who we're not worried about, but maybe not today. All right, so that's basically the test. This is the evaluation tool. And now I'd like to show you the Excel file, if that's okay.
Okay, where did we put it, Judy?
It's linked. Go down. Go down.
That?
There, Excel chart.
So this is a model chart. This is 2 classes from a school in the South. And you see right away that it's divided into pale green, pink, not red, pink, and gold. Okay. All the skills are broken down. And Adele, can we go all the way to the end?
There?
Go. If we look at all the way to the end,
the bottom.
What?
You want the end, the side, or the bottom?
Oh, so I'm sorry, the left. So you see that there is a final grade here. The final grade is okay, but that I wouldn't say let's break it down according to final grade. I'd say if we're dividing up into groups and learning groups, let's divide it up into skills a little bit more. And let's go now from top to bottom really quickly so you can see. This is how this class is a really good class, and this is how this class is divided. Let's keep going down. This is yeah.
Are you sure?
I think we have to go up. We've run away.
Arona, just a minute. While we're coming back, I just want to say.
Here we go. Stop. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you're thinking about how we're breaking up into our pods this year, one of the things that you might want to consider is breaking them up into pods based on a test like this, where you can see the different skills that students are weaker in. We get 18 in a pod, okay? You have to break up the class into two. How do you break up the class into two? You could break it up into the skills that they need to work on the most. In other words, you don't necessarily have to do Aleph ad Chet and Tet ad Taf, or whatever, however you break up your class by names, okay? One of the things that we can do is we can set up the pods in terms of the way these students are, okay? One of the things that's really important to do is to think about how we work on the skills with these students, okay? And so I just want you to keep that in mind, that this chart and this Excel helps us figure out how to do that.
So
Okay.
Judy, there's a comment in the.
I saw the comment, and
Okay.
I'll talk about it later.
Here we have a different class. This was that was one of the one class, and this is another class, and you can see that the scores are completely different. But the reason I wanted to show you this is we see that there are kids that just don't do anything. They leave it blank, and of course that says bing, 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 bing. Let's pay close attention to them. These kids, these white, like the kid who got 7, 4, and 3, they're clearly they have many more challenges. They're calling out, they're screaming. I mean, it pains me to see that they just sat there and did nothing. And I want to talk about that now. But these are also clearly special ed students in this lower group. The rest of the class, they're not. But these 3 kids, I asked about it, who are they and what's going on? And they were definitely special ed that were put in when they did the evaluation tool. We would like to know what the kids know. If we have a child, a student, a learner, whatever, a kid, and we know in advance that they are a Shiluv kid or they have special needs of some kind. Special needs or Shiluv, I'm not talking about an assessment was sent to school. And we see that, or we know from somewhere, like from the Mechanechet, or from the Rakezet Chinuch Miyuchad, or from the Rakaz Shiluv. These are kids that might do better if we read to them. So after they do this, or if we see that something's really problematic while the test is going on, because we're there, our job is to calm them down and to help them get over the hurdles if necessary. That's number 1. Number 2, we don't want kids freezing. So if a child raises his hand and says, when we come over, I can't read this, or ma katuv po, we can read it for them. And we can help them get over that hurdle. But then we must document that. It's important for us to know who asked for help and for whom that made a difference. It's important for us to know that. Okay, it's very important for us to know that. Yes, we are talking about 7th graders, Sagit. All right. So let's go up to the top of the Excel chart. And let's look, for example, where it says Kishur. Oh, and the reason this is in Hebrew, the reason this is in Hebrew and not in English is so that if we need to come to our principals and show them results, it's in a language that they say, Tov tagidu li atem ma katuv sham. It's in a language that they know, and that's important, I think. We know how many times we get phone calls from principals and administrators who are looking for material on the English Inspectorate site. And because it's all in English, they can't find it. That's fine. It's for us, it's for English teachers. But this is for us to share, I think, with our principals as well. And the Rakazei Shichva, and all sorts of other people that are working with us on these pods business and on other kinds of things that we're working on. Okay, so I just would like to go through the Kriya B'Charuzim. I thought you might like to see the results of that.
Which one is that?
Right here, we're showing us, it's perfect. We have students who do very well on everything. But the Kriya B'Charuzim, because it's isolated words, it's not words in content. For some of them, it's more difficult. And you see that their scores here are lower than across the board. That means, and that's what this teacher then worked on or had to work on a lot, actually decoding, actually really reading, and not kids sort of guessing and choosing their answers from the text. Oh, I'll take this, I'll put that in. I'll take that and I'll put it in. It's multiple choice. I'll choose between two answers. Here, we really wanted to see how the kids are reading and where they're having a hard time. And we see that even some of our better students find challenge in these pockets. There are pockets of challenge here, corners of challenge, and pockets of knowledge. Adele, can we just go down a little bit more, like from top to bottom? So let's stop here. What we see is that there's some things that everybody had a really easy time with, thank God, right? They didn't have a hard time with the visual discrimination. The first part of the listening for most of them
Hang on,
was
I'm going to freeze the top rows so that we could see it. Okay.
Thank you. That's great. So we'll just stop. We can just even stop here. So if, let's go down just a little bit, like up a little bit. Great, perfect. Stop. And great. Okay. And so we see that the vocabulary is okay. Like they got the vocabulary words. They have a harder time with filling in the correct word for the grammar thing. And the reading comprehension text about the present and the barking also shows us clear pockets of corners of challenge versus pockets of knowledge. So there's a lot of information that we can get from this. We also can clearly see that the second listening comprehension is much more difficult than the first one. Much more difficult than the first one. And I think that's good because then we get more information about a student. All right. If you look at, let's look at the kid who's parallel to 22 here. The listening comprehension was excellent. Finding matching words was excellent. Word to picture was excellent. And then the reading started falling apart. Da-da! In other words, there's good comprehension and the reading is an issue. We have it. Now we know what we have to do. And we know that this is the learner that has the potential to be in a very good class. And we're going to have to find a way to help him, her, it, that one, whatever, with the reading. Okay? So I think we've seen it all in general. And if we have time, I'm happy to field a couple questions that you might want to pull out the Google Docs.
Yeah, we're going to, thanks, Arona. Adele, can you go back to the PowerPoint, please, to Arona's PowerPoint for just a second? Go down.
Next one.
Down, down, down.
Next one.
Yeah, I like the dog. I wanted everyone to see the dog. Okay. Okay, there are two things that I want to say before I start.
I just want to say something about the dog one. Judy, I just want to say the reason I chose the reason I chose the dog. The reason I chose the dog is because while we're actually very sedentary in our Zoom presentations, there's always something that can move. And the kids, while they are also sedentary, there's always something that can move. And it's important. We all know from Judy's brain, from our brain breaks, but from everything, that it's always better to do a little bit of moving when you're trying to learn something. Too much sitting isn't good for anybody. Remember that wonderful, there was a TV show with Wall-E. Not a TV show, a movie with Wall-E, where there's nothing left on Earth and we sort of just kill everything. And we all live in
this little robot.
Well, they're actually people, but they're all blobs. So
Blobbing is fine, but it's good to do a little bit of moving. Anyway, so thanks.
Thank you, Arona. First of all, Arona, as always, we have no words for you. Before we field some questions, I want to say two things. One about the pods and one about the way that this Excel can actually help us in with building our pedagogy for next year. So first of all, when it comes to the pods, I understand that they want you to give it to them before. I understand everything. I also understand that from the time Erev Rosh Hashanah begins until we come back to school after Sukkot, we have some time. Let's be flexible and do the exam in our 17 days. And then we'll see if we'll be able to change pods after those 14 days, whether or not we'll be in school between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, whether or not, let's just wait and see. Okay, nobody has to panic now because you need to have pods and you don't have the test. Everyone do the evaluation as best you can before we go out for Rosh Hashanah, and then we'll see how we work out the pods with Misad Habriyut. Okay, so that isn't something that we have to panic about. The second thing I wanted to say is that the idea of finding out exactly where your students are stronger and exactly where your students need help, the pockets and the corner, the challenges and the pockets, and I forgot what Arona said, but I liked it. I'm gonna have to make a shirt out of it. Pockets of challenges and successes, the can-dos, is that when you make a choice board for your class, you can go and you can say, Deli, I think I need you to do choices 3 and 4 and then choose a couple of other ones for yourself. And then you know that he needs to work on his spelling and you know that he needs to work on am, is, and are. Okay, now then you might have Arona who really needs to work on her vocabulary. And another one of the choices in the choice board is working on vocabulary. So you're gonna say to Arona, do 1 and 2 and then choose another 2 of them. Okay, and that's actually your differential teaching. It comes with knowledge of who your students are, where their strengths are, and where their challenges are, and building the choice board for your class that includes all of the skills and all of the challenges and guiding each student to the place he needs to be. Okay, so one of the things that you need to understand from this diagnostic is not just how to put them in pods, but what to teach them, where they need to improve, and what are the things that you need to offer them in order for them to improve, and not just do the same of what they already know. Okay? In addition, just a second, Arona. In addition, it also allows you to think about who are the students who are going to have to come or stay in school a couple of times and be a pod for learning how to read. There may be students here who are coming into your schools who don't know how to read and have very struggling readers. In other words, they have some of the rules, but they don't have all of the rules. And those students shouldn't just be swept up into a pod. Those students, we need to know who they are and we need to know what to do with them. Okay, so first of all, Arona will explain how we're gonna know exactly what those issues are. She'll do that in a second. But also, we have Fern who's coming after this lecture who will also give you other ideas on how to work once you've done what Arona is going to tell you. Okay, someone, can you close your microphone, please? Thank you.
And I think we have to get this wagging dog tail out of everybody's eyes.
I love it. But okay.
You want me to stop share?
Yeah, you can stop share. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going into the document.
No, don't make me so big.
For Arona's questions, and I'm going to ask them, but I can't ask them and see you all.
I'd like to say something though.
Yes, please do.
So 3 things, okay? 3 things. First of all, we're going to have kids who have a really hard time on this test. And so there's a further stage of the evaluative process. And Judy said we'll have an opportunity to talk about that another time, but that's the diagnostic element of the ABLE kit that we give in 11th grade.
We're going to be having a session.
Grade.
We're going to be having a session about the ABLE kit after we open up the school year.
Right. So the diagnostic tool on the ABLE kit is a one-on-one where we have to sit with our students one-on-one. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And that gives us a real internal x-ray of all the specific areas of specific points of knowledge as far as reading are concerned and the challenges. And then we'll have more information. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's important to look at, in general, the shichva, in general, the kids that we have, and say, wow, like we have a whole bunch of kids that are excellent in their listening skills. Let's build up on that. We're going to use that more. Not only relying on that being something that we have to work on, but we're going to use it more. We have a whole bunch of kids who write beautifully. What can we do with that? That's the other end of the spectrum that we have to think about. And when we talk about differential, I mean, we always talk about differential teaching, but I think what Judy means is differential evaluation, differential learning. In other words, we give some kind of a task. We're working on specific skills within every single task that we give. We might need to focus on something with greater attention when we have these kinds of results. And if I think we've talked about it in the past, we have this concept of 7 wonders and teaching texts. That helps. That's a tool to help us cater to the variety of learner knowledge in our pods or in our groups. I don't think we need to create pods that are keleshata.
Right.
I don't think we need to do that. And we
but
don't
we
need
are going to have to take out the ones who aren't reading.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's what they're talking about, and I totally understand them. I'm not 100% sure that logistically with Misad Habriut, I know how to do that because we may not know them before they come into school, and I also understand that. So that's why I was saying to them, first, let's wait. We'll get to know the kids in the shichva and everything else, and then we'll see what happens after Sukkot. I do understand, but those kids can't be in a regular class because they'll be very they won't learn. It's going to be really hard to deal with them within a heterogeneous class.
Right, and also if we're on doing like distance learning, they will distance themselves.
It's even worse, obviously. Okay, yeah. Adele, are you sharing, please, that I sent you? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how we're going to work it. Adele is going to share the document on her screen so people can see. Melissa, are you there?
How much time do we have?
You have another 15 minutes. Melissa,
yes,
are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Did you read the message that I sent you about typing?
Okay, I'll find it.
I don't think you have to do that. Judy,
we will. But what I can't,
you want Melissa me to type the answers?
Yeah, because you type really quickly.
No problem.
Okay, I'm gonna read them out to you, Arona, and then we'll see what happens. So the first question is, can this be used for higher level special ed classes, or do you have another test that would be suitable?
Yes.
Yes, it's suitable?
Yes to both answers, to
okay.
both questions.
So for all of you special ed teachers, if your coordinators haven't told you no, and if you're a coordinator, then a bigger no, you know that we're going to be having a lecture series with Arona on special ed. And one of the things we'll be talking about is how to figure out what they know and what they don't know. Okay. The second question is how much time is necessary? That's in the teacher's guide. How long it takes, and do you need more than one day? I don't understand the question, but logistically, you'll figure out how much time you need. It depends how many hours you have with the student or whether or not you get permission to have them al chishbon other hours. In other words,
look, this whole thing should take a class, like if we have a 2 hour,
an hour and a half.
Less, yeah. And also you can divide it up. There's no reason that you don't, you can do the writing another time. You can split it.
Okay, I'm going to answer this next question so Arona doesn't get upset. Can we do this test online just to be eco-friendly? The test was supposed to be online. It was supposed to be ready in time for this September. It isn't ready, and no, they're going to have to write on it. Okay?
I think there's also something very, very valuable
about
about
writing.
seeing students writing.
Handwriting. I agree.
Please use recycled paper, and then you're more than welcome to recycle everything all over again. I don't care, but I'm sorry about the paper.
Okay, it is not the best way to connect, and I don't suggest, the question is, should I start the year with a test? So first of all, I don't think you're starting the year with a test. It isn't a test. It's a checking to see what you know how to do. And I think that as you get to know what their pet's name is and what their favorite color is and what their hobby is, it's also really important as a teacher to know what they can do in English and where I need to help you in the places that you have more difficulty. And I think that it's not just a good way, I don't think it's the best way, but I think it is one way to connect to the student as a learner, as an English learner. There are a lot of different faces to your students. One of your students, some of your students can play the guitar, and some can do this and some can do that, and some are good in English and some are more challenged. And if you call
some are sleeping because they are boring.
I love that one. I don't think that you call it a test. I think that's the clincher. You call it an evaluation, and you call it something that's going to help me be a better teacher and you a better learner. Okay? And I think that of course, if you call it a test, then yes, that's very threatening, and some kids will be freaked out about it. And no, that's probably not a good idea.
And
all
also,
right?
they're not going to get a grade on it.
They're not. It's not going into the report card. It's not a grade that they're supposed to get anywhere. Thank you, Arona.
And we don't give it back.
Even a mizdak is a terrible word, Limor. It's a bdika. Okay? It's an evaluation. It's a arachat chozkot. Okay? Go for arachat chozkot. We're checking your strengths. Okay? It's a stop and check. All right? Call it a stop and check.